Hi, I'm Kemper Sutton, graduate student in the Department of Entomology at Virginia Tech. I am co-advised by Dr. Tom Kuhart from the Department of Entomology and Dr. Stephen Rideout, who's in plant pathology. Both of my advisors spent many years working on the Eastern Shore, and I myself had the privilege of working at the Eastern Shore in 2019 doing my research there. Unfortunately, I was not able to work at the Eastern Shore this year due to COVID-19, but I wanted to give a quick virtual tour today to talk about some of my research I'm doing on edamame. So as you can see here, I'm in my edamame field today out here at Kentland Farms in Blacksburg. This plant is known as edamame, but to people here in the United States is known as soybeans. We grow them conventionally, meaning we harvest them at the R8 growth stage when they've senesced and dried out. But over in Asia, they actually harvest them as a vegetable at R6. So essentially these are the same exact plants, but one is being harvested as a vegetable right when the beans are the most full and juiciest. The focus of this research on edamame here at Virginia Tech is to really give growers, specifically here in Virginia, an opportunity to remain competitive on a global scale with other countries such as China and Taiwan. As you may know, the United States is the biggest producer of conventional soybeans in the entire world. However, we're importing up to 90% of our vegetable soybeans from China and Taiwan. So part of the research that I'm doing here in the Department of Entomology, as well as having a plant pathology component, is observing the types of pests we're seeing here, and then really working on what kinds of insecticides and fungicides might best work to help our growers here in Virginia have the best quality crops. Here's some of the main pests and diseases we've been seeing so far.
Key pests we've seen from the 2018 and 2019 field season have been a variety of stink bugs and caterpillars, including hoppers such as the potato leaf hopper, soybean aphid, and defoliators such as the bean leaf beetle and Mexican bean beetle. I'll talk more about stink bugs and caterpillars in the next few slides, but I wanted to touch on these bottom three before doing so. We have potato leaf hopper, which feeds on a variety of crops here in Virginia, but can cause a lot of issues for soybeans, or in this case, edamame. They particularly like to feed on edamame when it's younger in the growth stage before it begins to flower, and have a piercing, sucking mouth part that can penetrate the tissue of the leaves, causing a hopper burn, which will ultimately stunt the growth of the plant, causing yield loss down the road. Second one here is the soybean aphid. And it's not known as a huge pest early in the season, and we see this more in the end of the growing season, and they really don't cause that much of an issue in terms of damage themselves, but they are known to be a key contributor to transmitting viruses to soybeans or edamame. And lastly, here at the bottom are defoliators such as the bean leaf beetle, which is seen more in the eastern part of our state, and Mexican bean beetle, which is seen in the western part of the state. Both these beetles will feed on leaf tissue. It can cause a skeletonizing look on the leaves, ultimately reducing the amount of foliage and having potential impacts on yield. Now, really to kind of get into the two key pests that we've identified from 2018, 2019, which is stink bugs and caterpillars, or more specifically, corn earworms. Now here at the top, I have the brown stink bug, the green stink bug, and the brown marmorated stink bug. There's also a southern green stink bug. These all will feed on edamame, but mostly the biggest pest out of all of these is the brown marmorated stink bug, which is an invasive species from China. Now all these stink bugs have a straw-like mouth part that will actually penetrate the shell of the pod and kind of use that straw-like mouth part to suck the juices out. And as you can see on the picture on the right here, that is very, very bad stink bug damage. And obviously, if you were to sell this at market, it would not be marketable. Now, really the interesting thing about this is if you were to close that bean in this picture here on the right, on the exterior, you would not see any damage whatsoever. It would look like a very clean, mature, healthy pod that you could share or sell to the store. And, you know, if a consumer was to take this pod and then, you know, in order to consume it, open it up, they would look inside and see this damage. So it's really concerning that stink bugs are able to feed on the fruit of edamame and not cause any visible exterior damage, but can cause quite a bit of damage to the interior. Now here at the bottom we have caterpillars, like I said, the corn earworm, also known as the tomato fruit worm, and a bunch of other names. This is probably arguably one of the biggest pests of any kind of vegetable or crop in the eastern United States. and we have them once again on edamame. Now, these guys will usually wait until there's pods on the stalks of the edamame plant, and then they will actually take their chewing mouth parts and directly feed through the shell and eat the bean inside the plant. And obviously, that is not marketable to any grocery store or restaurant. Now, you're probably wondering, well, we've identified these pests. What are we doing about it? And so, one of the key components that we're trying to accomplish here at Virginia Tech is to be able to evaluate and identify the best insecticides to use to control for these pests in Virginia. And as you can see here in 2019, we did some insecticide tests controlling stink bugs on edamame. And just to quickly go through this, you can see here on the bottom, we have the treatments on the left, bifenthrin that you might recognize, and a bunch of others. And then what I really want you to look at on the right-hand side of the screen with the orange arrow, the proportion survival. So basically we treated stink bugs that were feeding on edamame and checked on how many survived. And as you can see, the untreated check, 95% of them survived, obviously because they did not receive insecticides. Then you can see where we applied bifenthrin and 0% of them survived. So, there is some inconsistencies with labels in terms of insecticides across the state. So part of what we're doing in the Department of Entomology is trying to identify insecticides that can be used, going through their labels, and working on getting edamame into the pest management guide for farmers in Virginia. Now, moving on to diseases, as previously mentioned, I have a fungicide component of my edamame research, and this is kind of encompasses the same idea of identifying key diseases. Now, you're probably thinking, oh, well, we already know all of the diseases of soybeans in the United States, and that's true. It's been observed for many, many decades. However, we have been seeing some key differences between the two. Even though scientifically they're the same plant, plants or soybeans here in the United States have been bred to have certain resistance to diseases we have in our area. And this edamame seed is actually untreated seed, ungenetically modified seed, and then sometimes being bred with strains from China and Taiwan. And so they don't have the same mechanisms that protect them as our conventional soybeans here in the United States have. And so in 2018, we actually had soybean anthracnose that showed up. And this has never really been recorded very well in the United States, but it was very prevalent in our edamame plots, and that was extremely concerning for us. However, it did not show up again in 2019, and we believe that's because of two different growing seasons. 2018, we had a really heavy hurricane season with a lot of rainfall, and 2019 was much drier. We're going to continue to evaluate and see if those show up again in the future. But we had some other diseases such as bacterial blight, as you can see here in the far right-hand picture. And then a very typical soybean disease here in the bottom left picture is purple seed stain, and this can cause a seed quality issue for edamame. And ultimately, as well, with the insect damage, as this is being marketed as a vegetable, so kind of any exterior blemishes to these pods or interior blemishes means that these fruits are not marketable to restaurants or grocery stores. And so learning what fungicides are able to protect these plants from diseases like these is really important to this project. And once again, here's a quick example of some tests that we're running to do some research on how to best grow these plants without having any insects or diseases. And in this case, this is a fungicide experiment we ran in 2019 at the Eastern Shore AREC in Painter, Virginia. And basically, we put down a fungicide that was in furrow at planting, and essentially we're trying to see if putting this fungicide down will actually increase the emergence rate of edamame in the field, because typically you get soil-borne diseases that may affect these plants and cause them not to come up very well. We didn't get the best results last year, but as you can see with the orange arrow, the emergence rate, the non-treated control actually had the lowest emergence rate. And then in some cases, when we applied different rates of uniform, we saw much higher emergence rates, and this is going to be something we also continue to look at in the future. Lastly, I just want to say thank you for taking the time to watch this video and learn about edamame. If you have any questions, my name is Kemper Sutton, and my email is here at the bottom of this slide. I look forward to any questions you may have, and feel free to contact me anytime. Thank you.